I'll be very honest with you. Sometimes when you go out a little bit to speak, you think to yourself, what does the crowd want to hear? Sometimes you get a little bit more bold and you ask yourself, what do you think the crowd should hear? And I'm hoping that tonight's Dirashah is going to land somewhere between those two thoughts. Because I'll be honest with you, I'd like to share with you tonight something that might not be necessarily on the entertaining side. Maybe tonight might not be the night of stories. But I was looking and hoping that together you'd give me an opportunity to find within both of us a tremendous chizuk to go out there and continue to fight for what we believe in Klal Yisrael. Because that is what Hanukkah is really all about. To be able to remember who we are. To remember that we're the oil. To remember that no matter what society we're poured into, we do not mix, but rather we separate. We rise to the top of every society, and we continue to illuminate the world. That's what it means to be a Jew. That's me and you. And Chanukah comes around every year and reminds us that in the middle of the darkness, never forget that you were meant to be the light unto the nations. What a reminder. And when we kindle that light, as we stand in front of it tonight, it actually reignites us to remember and remind us who we are and what and who we were meant to be. I'm hoping that tonight's chizuk will really inspire the two of us, yourself and myself, to go out and remind ourselves of those young dreams. When we were young, we had the audacity to dream. We used to think to ourselves, I'm going to go out, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do tremendous things in Klal Yisrael. One day I'm going to be a gadol. And I read those Gedolim books, those art scroll books. And I said, one day that's going to be me. And we read those magnificent stories of Gedolim as they grew up. And we asked ourselves, why not me? Maybe one day I can do something to illuminate the world, to illuminate Klal Yisrael. Maybe I can be that guy. And Hanukkah comes around every year and tells yourself, as you're lighting the menorah up against the window, you know what's looking right back at you? You. But a lichtige you. The reflection off of that window pane. And you see yourself lighting the menorah, you're lighting yourself up. And it reminds you of who you were supposed to be and still can be. Tonight I want to come to you with an offering of chizuk from one of the great Geonim, the great Tzadikim, none other, none less than the Badayan, Zechet Tzadik Lebracha, the great Reb Avram Dov ben Reb David me'Avrich, known better to Klal Yisrael as the Avricher, the Badayan, who came from Europe, made his way to Eretz Yisrael, stayed in Yerushalayim for a short period of time, and then one Elul decides that he's going to spend Yamim Noraim up in Tzfat, only to see the mystical city. Comes up to Tzfat, spends an Elul. He was so drunk on the inspiration that he said, I'm staying here for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. He stays for Yom Adin. He stays for Aseret Yemei Teshuvah. He stays for Yom Kippur. And he says, Tzfat, I can't leave. But his family was back in Yerushalayim. So he says, I have to go back to Yerushalayim. He says, you know what? I'm just going to stay another few days. Just till the end of Sukkot. And then I'm going to go back to Yerushalayim. He stays another few days. And then finally, at the end of Sukkot, right after Shmini Aseret, he's walking through the narrow streets of Tzfat. And he hears a Jewish lady scream out to her son, quickly, go up to the Baidim, go up to the roof, take down all the carpets, take down all the stuff that we have on the roof. Because yesterday Klal Yisrael just bench Geshem. It's going to pour. The Badayan heard this. He said, what? Such timimut? Such emunah pshuta? There are yet such people in Tzvat? A simple Jewish lady who screams to her son as if an alarm went off. Ki'ilu, don't you know? They just bench Geshem. Mashiva Ruach. The minute Klal Yisrael bench Geshem, quick, don't waste time. Run up to the roof. Take the stuff down. Klal Yisrael bench Geshem. It's going to pour. Says the Badayan, such emunah pshuta of the common person. If Tzvat has such people, then I'm not leaving. He sent the message back to Yerushalayim to tell his family, if you want to see me again, come to Tzvat. And the Badayan remained in Tzvat, becoming the Rav of Tzvat. That legendary story, 1837, the great earthquake. The earthquake of Tzvat. I'm sure everybody here, you've been to Tzvat, you've been to the famous cemetery, the Arizal, you can see the landslide. The cemetery did not look like that once upon a time. It looks like that today because of the earthquake of 1837. Many of the graves of great tzaddikim were lost, buried under the rubble. Today, you're going to walk through that cemetery, you'll see a lot of blue boxes on the ground with no name. We don't know exactly, after the earthquake, all the tzaddikim that were buried. But the Badayan was in his shul at the time of the earthquake. And many of the shuls were destroyed through the earthquake of Tzvat. Many of the shuls. The Badayan was standing in front of the shul by the Aron Kodesh, and he gives a scream to his congregation, and he tells them, quickly, anyone who wants to live, come run up to me. And all the people of the shul run up to the Badayan. He lays down on the floor right against the Aron Kodesh, and he begins to scream, Tefillot HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to save them. And the people are literally leaning over the Rav. The entire shul caved in right up to the Aron Kodesh area where the Badayan was laying. That spot was not touched. Today, Be'ezrat Hashem, Eretz Yisrael should open again. You're able to go to Tzvat. You'll go to the shul of the Badayan, and you'll see there's a plaque right there on the wall by the Aron Kodesh, and it says there the story that I just told you. And it tells you, you are standing on the spot, on the very spot that the miracle took place. The spot that the Badayan laid on the floor and cried out, Tefillot Hashem, and saved his entire congregation. You can stand on that very spot and daven yourself. Because we know a place that the Eibishter already brought miracles to is a makom of et ratzon. I'd like to talk to you tonight about the Badayan. Only a few weeks ago it was his yahrzeit. Many of us made seudot for the famous segulot of the Badayan. But tonight I want to make a special seudah. I want to make a seudah of chizuk for Klal Yisrael. I'd like to reintroduce to you, through the eyeglasses of the Badayan. I want to tell you over a story that was only a parasha ago, Parashat Vayeshev. It's a story that's one of the most difficult stories in Torah to teach to Bachrim and children. I remember in yeshiva over the years, anytime we came to the story of Yehuda and Tamar, I saw the Rebbe was sweating it through. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy ma'aseh to give over. Rabotai, I'm going to tell you the story of Torah, Pashut Pshat. Yehuda and Tamar. So Tamar, the daughter-in-law of Yehuda, she marries Er, and then he passes away. And then she marries Onen through Yibum, because she had no children. Obviously, she went to the next brother. And then what happened? The second brother passes away as well. There's one brother left, Shelah, the youngest son of Yehuda. Yehuda was worried. If I were to give Tamar to Shelah, who knows? Maybe she's Katlanit. Maybe she's a black widow. Maybe her husbands are dying because of her. But this is my last son, said Yehuda. So Yehuda starts making excuses, says the Pasuk. And he tells her, he's still a young bacher. He needs to stay in yeshiva for a few years. He's not ready for marriage yet. And he pushes it off. Although she's zakuk to the next brother. She needs to go to him for yibum or chalitza, one of the two. But Yehuda stalled and made the excuses, worried that he might lose his last son to Tamar as well. In the interim, as we know, Torah tells us in last week's parasha, Tamar goes and masquerades as somebody else. And she sits on the side of the road. And she waits for her father-in-law Yehuda to come by. It was there that she was going to perform yibum, either with the son or either with the father-in-law. One of the two. So she masquerades like someone else. She waits for him to come by. And then she comes out to him and she propositions him to come to her. He's with her. And make no mistake, Chazal tell us no different than the grandfather, no different than the grandson. Hayadua, Kol haomer David, Chata to'eh. The Medrash says the same thing about Yehuda. Kol haomer Yehuda, Hatzadik, Chata to'eh. You don't know the Maisa. That's what Chazal is telling us. And you cannot take this Maisa on a Pashut Pshat level. And don't dare humanize the Shivtei. Don't you think for 1 minute we're talking about people ki'ilu that we can even fathom, let alone grasp. And therefore, the Ma'aseh is what it is. And this is a difficult one to understand. But nonetheless, that is the Pashut Pshat in the Pasuk. It came time, Yehuda had to give her an aravon until he sent her over her pay. So he hands her, he gives her his signet ring, he gives her his staff, and he gives her a certain amount of his clothing. He gives it to her as a mashkon, aravon, and then sure enough, a day or two later, he sends over with his good friend, the Ish Hadulami, the payment to get back his stuff. Ve'enena. And he goes to the side of the road and she's not there. Yehuda, what happened? He inquired, what happened to this person, this woman that was at the side of the road? Nobody knows. And that was it. It seems that the story is done. Rabotai, open your hearts. I want to tell you over one of the most famous Badayan in Torah, but also one of the most powerful. I don't believe that a Yid can go through Hanukkah without this Badayan. I don't think it's possible to really hit and connect with the pnimiyut of Hanukkah without this Badayan. Please open your hearts. I'm going to tell you now what took place. Pashut Pshat. Pashut Pshat. Vayihi kim shlosh chodashim. And so it was at the end of 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, obviously Tamar begins to show that she's pregnant. And people start to question what's going on. She was zakuk to Shelah. She needed either yibum or chalitza. How was she allowed to be with anyone else? Vayihi kim shlosh chodashim. 3 months have passed. At the end of 3 months, and she begins to show. And what happens? Vayugad Yehuda. So they tell her father-in-law Yehuda. And you know what they tell Yehuda? Zanta Tamar kalatecha. Your daughter-in-law Tamar, she was promiscuous. And take a look. And now she is expecting. V'gam hineh hara liznunim. Not only did she sin, but she is pregnant from the zenut. What? Vayomer Yehuda. Chazal tell us Yehuda was the Av Bedin. He was sitting on this case. Vayomer Yehuda. Hotziuha b'tisaref. Take her out and give her streifa. Not the serefa of a kibshon ha'esh, but they used to put a hot coal down the throat to burn out the insides. Take her out, zenut. Take her out and have her burnt. He mutzet, Rabotai, Pashup Shat. We're not getting to the Badayan yet. Chakeh. He mutzet. We got to create some drama here. Wake you guys up. Everyone's sleeping. He mutzet. She was being taken out. V'hishalcha el chamiha lemor. She sends a message to her father-in-law, and this is what she says. Listen to these words. Leish asher ele lo anochi hara. To the one that these things belong to, that's the one, that's the cause of my pregnant, present state. Wow. She brings out the eravon, the items that were given to her by Yehuda. And she says, whoever these things belong to, that's the one responsible for this. Vatomer Rabotai, listen to these words. I didn't get to the Badayan yet. I'm going to make you sit there before we get to the Badayan. Just a Pashup Shot, you can already be ro'ed. Listen to these words. Vatomer Haker na. She says to Yehuda, Haker na, recognize. Lemi hachotemet v'aptilim v'hamate ha'ele. To who does this signet, these belongings, and this stick belong to? What were those words? What was those words? Haker na. All of a sudden a bell goes off in the head of Yehuda. Haker na. I heard those words before. Those are my words. Who said Haker na before? Who else in Torah before this Maisa said the words Haker na? Yehuda! It was Yehuda that said to Yaakov Avinu when he took Ketonet Pasim after Mechirat Yosef and he dipped it into the blood and he came in front of his father. What did he tell his father when he placed the bloody Ketonet Pasim in front of him? Haker na! Recognize. Is this the Ketonet Pasim of your son? Now, the very same words that he used to break his father's heart is the very same words that was boomeranged right back to him. Listen to the words of Tamar. Vatomer haker na lemi hachotemet v'apitilim v'hamate gevalt. Do you hear what I hear? Do you see what I see? Do you see the exact, unbelievable ways of Borei Olam to perfection? Even the very words that Yehuda used when it came time that he hurt his father by bringing bloody Ketonet Pasim on the Maasev Yosef, the very words that he used to hurt someone was used to hurt him. Those are my words. Yehuda was ro'ed, he shook. Oh, ilanu miyom hadin. Oh, ilanu, that even the words are working against us. And that's why the Mefarshim say in the next pasuk, what a pshat, Vayaker Yehuda. Not just that Yehuda recognized the items on the table that belonged to him. No. Vayaker Yehuda. Yehuda connected the dots. She said Hakerna. I said Hakerna. I broke my father with the words Hakerna, and now those words were brought to break back to me. Wow! Vayaker Yehuda. He recognized what just took place. He recognized the Hakerna. And said, Borei Olam, you used my words, and you brought it right back to me. Vayomer, and Yehuda says, from the most powerful words of the entire Torah, Tzadka mimeni. She's right, and I'm wrong. Says the Midrash, at that moment the Bat Kol came out from Shamayim, and the Eibishter said, Chayecha v'chaye banecha. Kivyachol Borei Olam swears on the life of Yehuda and the life of his children. Mimcha Milachim yetzeu. From you, the kings of Klal Yisrael are going to come out. Really? Wow, what a moment. Now? Yeah, now. This was the moment from the greatest showing of Gevurah in the entire Torah. Yehuda could have made 20 different excuses. Lahavdil elef alfei havdalot. Could you imagine if a story like this went down in a political arena? Could you imagine? A scandal's about to break. Well, what do you think the guy's going to do to a politician? In light of the new evidence, we see fit to arrange and appoint a investigative committee that's going to look in light of the new evidence. And then the investigative committee investigates for the next 4 years until the guy gets out of office. And then the time he leaves office, there's nothing left to investigate. And Yehuda had every single reason to bail out. He had frummer reasons. The most frummest reason in the world. If I'm going to admit, you know what type of chil Hashem is going to come out of this? It's Abedin. Do you know who I am? I'm Yehuda ben Yaakov. I'm the son of the Gadol Ador. Could you imagine if people hear this? You know what they're going to say about the family. You know what you're going to say about Kavod HaTorah. You know what you're going to say about my father. You know what they're going to say about my brothers. He had 100 good reasons to deny. From a reasons. Chil Hashem. And yet, no. Tzadka mimeni. She's right. I'm wrong. Says Borei Olam. Wow. That's Gvura. That's a melech. Gur Aryeh Yehuda. Yehuda, you're the lion. Such Gvura to be able to admit, in spite of the embarrassment, in spite of everything that can be lost. Yes, she's right, and I'm wrong. Ve'alken, ki alken, lo nitatia l'shela beni. This all happened. I understand why she did this now. She was working out of desperation because I held back my youngest son Shela and didn't give it to her in Yibum as I should have done. Rabotai, this is the Maisa. This is the Pashut Pshat. And everything you heard, give or take, was something that you came in tonight already knowing. The Psukim themselves, the story. Comes the Badayan. And he rewrites the story of Yehuda and Tamar, the words of the Psukim, literally, like we've never heard it before. And wow, Rabotai, Hanukkah is never going to be the same after this. I'd like to read it to you again now, through the eyeglasses of the great Badayan, the Avritcher, Rabbi Avram Dov ben Reb David, Zchuto yagen aleinu. Vayihi, listen to the pasuk. Says the Badayan. Vayihi kim shlosh chodashim. And it was at the end of 3 months. Says the Badayan in the name of the Arizal HaKadosh. Says the Arizal, you know what happens at the end of the first 3 months of the year? There is the final Chatima of the Gzar Din of every Jew in Klal Yisrael. Really? Wow. Wait 1 second, Rabbi. I want to get this straight. I remember the Ne'ilah speech of Kippur, and you were screaming at us, this is the last chance. Wait. You telling me there's another chance? Wait 1 second, Rabbi. I stayed up with you all night on Hoshana Rabbah, and you were telling me classes, Shemayim Bet, Ani Vano, Hoshiana, my gosh. We were bringing down the rain in the Bet Midrash, in the middle of the night. And you were screaming to me, no. This is it. This is the Gmar HaChatima. Oh, really? I thought that was Nila. No, that was the Chatima, my friend. Listen to me. That was the Chatima. This is the Gmar HaChatima. Oh, wow, Rabbi. Okay, let's do tshuva. My gosh. We can still get it. Comes the Badayan and the Shema Ari, And he says, yes. Yeah. Ne'ilah was the Chatima. Hoshana Rabbah was the Gmar Chatima. But this is the final Chatima handed over and sent out for the execution of the Gzar Din of every Jew for the coming year. This is the last chance to change it all. When? Vayihi Kim Shlosh Chodashim. At the end of the third month. So let's take a look. The first month of the year is Tishrei, and the second month is Heshvan, and then the third month is Kislev. At the end of Kislev is the final Gmar Din for Klal Yisrael, the final Chatima. What is the end of Kislev? Hanukkah. Wow. Hanukkah is the final Chatima for Klal Yisrael. The last leg of judgment, the last opportunity to change it all. The Ne'ilah of the all Ne'ilot. This is the final Ne'ilah, says Arizal. You know what? Hanukkah. How brilliant it is. How lucky we are that we can get that final last chance in between the Lichtigkeit of the Lecht of Chanukah. How lucky we are. Now let's read the Pasuk, Rabotai. Here we go. Vayihikim Shosh Chodashim. At the end of 3 months, the final Chatima for Klal Yisrael. The end of Kislev, on the holiday of Hanukkah. Vayugad li Yehuda lemor. Now you understand, Rabotai, that when you have that final moment of din, the minute, the last chance that you can change it all, who do you think shows up to the courtroom? Well, at every presence of judgment, the prosecutor comes running to reinvest his case. So you know who shows up, says the Badayan? Vayihikim shlosh chodashim. You know who shows up on Chanukah in the Bedin Shel Mala? Because he knows that that's the last Gmar Din for Klal Yisrael. You know who shows up? The Samach Mem, the Malach HaMavet, the Sar Shel Esav, the Yetzer Hara. It's the same guy. The prosecutor, he comes now to prosecute against Klal Yisrael, to tell the Borei Olam, to tell the Eibishter, don't give him this last chance. Vayugad li Yehuda lemor. The Yetzer Hara tells Yehuda the following. Who is Yehuda? Yehuda, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Says the Badayan, Yehuda is the embodiment of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's Hashem, Vayugad li Yehuda. And he tells to Hashem the following. You know what he tells Borei Olam? Don't give them this last chance. You know why? Zanta Tamar Kalatecha. You know who's Tamar? Do you read Shir HaShirim every Friday night like the Sfardim do? In Shir HaShirim, you know what we say every single week? You know who is Damita Litamar? Klal Yisrael. We, Klal Yisrael, are Domeh to Tamar. Pasuk in Shir HaShirim, we read it every week. We are Damita Litamar. So you know what they say to Yehuda? Vayihikim shosh chodashim, at the end of 3 months, the time of the last din, Vayugad Yehuda, and the Yetzer Hara tells to Hashem lemor, and this is his prosecution. Zanta Tamar Kalatecha, Tamar Klal Yisrael. She's fell into averot, she fell into ta'avot. Don't give her the last chance. And not just that they fell into ta'avot. No, v'gam hine hara liznunim. Not only did they fall into ta'avot, but they are davuk in their ta'avot. Hara means to be connected to something. They're connected to the ta'avot. They're marinating in their sin. Vayomer Yehuda. So Hashem says, if that's the case, if they're into ta'avot and they're connected to the ta'avot, hotzi'uha v'tisaref, then let the judgment take its toll. Just then, at the last leg of judgment, at the end of the 3rd month in Kislev, just when we thought we had that last chance to fix it up and clean it up, He mutzet, as Klal Yisrael is being taken out of din on Chanukah, things don't look too good. V'hi shalcha elcha mi'alemor, she sends back a message to Yehuda, to Hashem. Klal Yisrael sends back a message to Hashem, and listen to the message we tell Borei Olam. It's not true. Le'ish asher ele lo anochi hara. To the one that on him, you know who we're devoked to? To the one that on him that it says Anochi, that's the one that we are connected, Hara, that we are impregnate, we're connected to. The one that Anochi Hashem Elokecha, we are connected to the Anochi, not to the Averot. Why do we fall in Averot? Because of the Tirdat HaParnasa, because of the difficult Nisyonot of Galut. But we're not davuk to the Averot, Eibishter. No! Le'ish asher eile lo Anochi Hara, we're connected to the Anochi. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. To him we're davuk, not to the Averot. Vatomer, and Klal Yisrael says, I'll bring you a raya. I'm going to bring you a proof. She'en alei pircha. I'm going to bring you a proof that we're connected to you, Eibishter, and not to the Averot. Hakerna, recognize, Abba, lemi hachotemet. Who has the mitzvah of the chotemet, of the Kohen Gadol, on the Pach Shemen that we waited out for? Because we didn't want to use Tumidiko oil. We used only the purest of the pure, Mahadrim and Amahadrim. Not only do we do your mitzvot, but we do it in the best of ways. And we do it Mahadrim and Amahadrim. Who has this mitzvah? Lemi hachotemet. Who has the signet of Kohen Gadol on the Pach Shemen? Va'pitilim. Who has the halachot that are not just down to the menorah, but even to the wicks? You know how many halachot there are on the ptil, on the wicks that we use for the menorah? Who has the chotemet of the oil? Who has the wicks? V'hamateh, says the Badayan, mateh is the gematria of Keli, that's the menorah itself. Who has the shemen? Who has the wicks? Who has the menorah ha'ele? Hakerna, Abba, recognize who has the mitzvah of Chanukah. Look the way we do this mitzvah. We do it mahadrim mina mahadrim. Does that look to you like someone that's davuk in averot? Does that look to you like someone that's davuk in ta'avot? Take a look what we're really davuk in. We're davuk in you. We're davuk in your mitzvot. This is the great testimony that wins us the judgment every year. The mitzvah of Hanukkah. It's the prevailing tainer, the prevailing ta'ana in the courtroom of heaven at the end of 3 months on the final ne'ilah of the judgment of me and you every single year. Vayaker Yehuda ay Rabotai. Gewalt. Vayaker Yehuda. And Borei Olam recognizes that what Klal Yisrael is saying is true. The menorah was the hoichacha. Vayaker Yehuda, Hashem recognizes that what we're saying is emet, that we're davuk in Him, we're davuk in His mitzvot, we're davuk in the chotemet, the pitil, the mateh. Vayomer, and Hashem says in the judgment, tzadka mimeni, Klal Yisrael's right. Klal Yisrael's right. She's right over me, says the Rebbeinu Shloim. You know why they fall every now and then? The reason is ki alken lo nitatia l'shela beni. It's my fault, says Borei Olam Kivyachol, because I didn't bring her shela beni ad sheyavo shilo. I didn't bring her yet Mashiach. I held Klal Yisrael in such a long galut for so many years. How was she supposed to hold out after all the nisyonot? After everything they went through, after all the nations that rose to wipe her out. And today, in the last moments, everything that's going up against us, in the leftism and the liberalism and the social media and in everything that's hitting on us from every side and the billboards in New York City, and it goes on and on and on. How did I expect that I left them in the darkness to marinate in the wallows of Galut for so long, and they shouldn't fall? Avada, they're going to fall, but they're not davuk in the averot. They're davuk in me, says Borei Olam. Tzadka mimeni. She's right. She's right. Hakerna. They're right. Look at the mitzvah they have. Look at the Chanukah they have. This is the biggest raya that what she's saying is true. Klal Yisrael is right. Tzadka mimeni. This is my issue, says Borei Olam. Ki al ken lo netatia l'shela beni. This is mine. I'm guilty of this, says Borei Olam, because I waited so long and kept them in Galut for so long, and I didn't bring them Sheila Beni, I didn't bring them Melech HaMashiach. Wow. I don't think you could ever walk up to a menorah the same after you hear this Badayan. This menorah was the final taina, the winning taina in Bezdin. This is it. This is what got us the last chance. Kim Shlosh Chodashim. Rabotai, you know what this tells me and you? That when we come to a Hanukkah, and we're holding now, how long? A day or two away from Rosh Chodesh? Vayihi Kim Shlosh Chodashim. We're literally at the end of the third month. We're holding here by the Ni'ilah. This is it. This is a time that in the unbelievable Kedusha of this Chanukah menorah, we could actually change around the entire Gmar Din. We can stand by a menorah. We can light up the menorah as it lights us up. We could begin to daven in front of the nerot. We could literally have an et ratzon to be able to change a whole year. My Rebbe told me, Rabbi Shalom Rabinovich, that at the end of Sukkot there's a Havdalah. At the end of Pesach we make Havdalah. Even Shabbat ends with an Havdalah. But there's no Havdalah at the end of Chanukah. Because the light of Chanukah has to come with us into the entire year. It's a mashpia for the entire year. It literally now is a koveya. It's the last ne'ilah for the entire coming year, Rabotai. Could you imagine that? And this is the moments we have. We have a day and a half, two left to the end of the third month. We're hoping now, says the Arizal, in that last ne'ilah. This is it. But there's another aspect to this concept. And it's not just what it means to us in our entire year, but it means to who we are. This reminds us of who we are. And it makes no difference if you're a guy walking down the streets of Brooklyn. It makes no difference if you're a guy that was let back onto campus. There is something today that we need for each one of us to lean on each other and remind that we're under an unbelievable influence of Goyim. And the whole Maisa of Hanukkah was to remind us that like the oil, we don't mix. And we're able to stand up and illuminate the world and remind us of who we were, who we're supposed to be. But we're ready to fight for the oil. We're ready to fight for what we believe in. The whole concept of Hanukkah was Klal Yisrael pushing away the darkness of the Goyim, standing up with a pure light. Do you know how far we go to fight? Do you know how dangerous it is out there? I don't have to tell you. You could probably tell me. You could probably tell me. How many times I got phone calls, Rabbi, I have an issue. I got a problem. Can I come down to shul and talk? I say, yeah. He says, Rabbi, I don't know how this happened. I come from a very good family. My grandfather was a rabbi back in the old country. But somehow or other, It just started with a smile. And it was something very innocent, like, hey, you want to do homework together? And I said to myself, a guy with a yarmulke, what's the problem? I don't want to make a chil Hashem. I don't want to come off sounding like a snob. So I said, yeah, why not? Let's go do homework together. Just to show, like, I'm normal. I'm a Jew, but I'm normal. And he says, we started doing homework together with this individual. And then one homework led to another homework, which led to another homework. And that is the answer to the Ben Ish Chai's question. B'chol dor vador? Omdim aleinu l'chalotenu? Really? B'chol dor vador? You mean to tell me every generation they're out to kill us? Every generation? Every generation? In the last 50 years, did anyone come out to kill us here in America? Says the Ben Ish Chai, my friend, you got it backwards. If it says B'chol dor vador, you know what it means? B'chol dor vador. Even now. But in some generations they come to kill you with the sword. And in some generations they come to kill you with the smile. Two different techniques with the same result. Do we have to be so careful? That's when Hanukkah comes along and reminds us that we were supposed to be the oil, that we don't mix. And we have to be so careful that when we are around wonderful people out there in the world, remember, you're an eagle amongst chickens. You have to carry yourself that. Don't forget who you are. Tremendous concept. Like that farmer. The farmer was walking out in the fields, and he sees a very large egg. He says, wow, how did this egg get out of my chicken coop? He picks up the egg, he goes back to the chicken coop, and he puts the egg underneath the mother hen. And he says, it's good that I caught that one. This is going to be a big chicken. Almost lost out on a big one. A few days later, all the eggs under the mother hen, under the chicken, begin to crack, begin to hatch. And all the little chicks pop their head right out of the egg, including this large egg. And a baby eagle pops its head right out of the egg and looks up at the mother hen and says, Mama, like all the other chickens. And the next day, the mother hen is walking her way out to the yard, behind the barn, as she would do every day. And behind her are all the new little chicks, along with this larger looking chick style type of a bird. A head or two taller than the rest of his brothers and sisters, but he's walking in line like everybody else. Like everybody else. I just want to be like everybody else. And they come out to the yard, and the little chicks instinctively, the minute the farmer drops the seeds in the mud, they start to peck away and grab the little seeds, and this baby eagle, not knowing better, puts his head in the mud and starts pecking away at the little seeds. Because that's what everybody's doing. I mean, that's what everyone's doing. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to stick my head in the mud again and again and keep pecking away at the seeds like everybody else. Because I just want to be like everybody else. I just want to be like everybody else. And this goes on for days and days and days. One day they're out in the back of the barn, and the baby eagle is pecking away at the thing with the chickens in the mud. And suddenly, the whole backyard goes dark. And they all look up to see what's blocking the sun. And they see this magnificent bird. Magnificent. And they say, wow, look at that bird. He's soaring through the sky with such grace. I would believe that he's even flying above the clouds. How does a bird reach that high? They say, wow, look at that bird. And they're oohing and eyeing and wow. And this little baby eagle says, wow, what is that? And the little chickens look at the mother, and the mother says, that? Oh, that's the king of all the birds. That's an eagle. And this little baby eagle looks and says, wow. He turns to his brothers and sisters and he says, I wish I wish I was an eagle. Oh, I wish I was an eagle. I wish I could soar like that. I wish I could reach such heights. And all the little chickens look at him and they start laughing. Look at this guy. Did you hear him? He thinks he's an eagle. He thinks he's an eagle. Look, I get a load of this guy. He thinks he's an eagle. Hey, bro, you're a chicken like the rest of us. You're no different than the rest of us. Get your head back down into the mud and keep pecking at the seeds. And that's when Hanukkah comes along. And he reaches out to all of us on campus and says, you're an eagle. Do not forget who you are. You don't belong with the chickens. Get your head out of the mud and pick it up. And remember that that was you that was meant to be soaring through the sky like that. We have to fight for the light. We have to be reminded year after year after year, because al ken lo natatiha l'shela beni. This galut is so long, says Borei Olam. Tzadka mimeni. You're right. I know it's difficult. I know you're being literally plastered with every test out there, and it's rough and it's difficult. But hang on just a little bit longer, because we're almost there. And understand that we're just hopping around a few more neshamot before Shela Beni shows up in Klal Yisrael. Ad Sheyavo Shiloh. Rabotai, you're not going to believe how far these things go. This need to want to fit in. This need that, we get infatuated with their music and we start going after their celebrities and we start idolizing their idols. And it's amazing how we watch their celebrities of Hollywood as they go in their limousines from one rehab center to the next rehab center, and we're throwing kisses at them. And we want to be them. I want to be you. Can I have your autograph? You, the guy in the back of the limo going from one rehab to the other rehab. You, the guy who can't keep a marriage for more than 2 weeks. You, the guy, him, the front of Inquirer magazine. The inquiring minds want to know what makes you so messed up. I want to be you. I want to be you. I want to look like you. I want to talk like you. I want to dress like you. And if you put your name on a watch, bro, I'll buy it. Okay, I'll buy it. I got to make sure I got the name of every guy in every rehab center in the United States on my watch. I need that. Me? Are you joking? You're an eagle. What are you playing with the chickens? When are we going to wake up? When are we going to come to this understanding? Comes Chanukah. It's the reminder of the light. It sheds light. You know the English expression? Do you see the light? This is it. This is the holiday. This is the one that takes the darkness away. It kind of pulls the curtain back and is able to show you the truth that's behind it. Remember who you are. Simba. Remember who you are. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are. You wouldn't believe how far these things go. You wouldn't believe. A few years ago, I was going back to Lakewood. In those years, I was still living in Lakewood. I was driving back and forth for 16 years, commuting every day. And every Shabbat, I stayed by my in-laws. Every Shabbat for 16. I was the son-in-law of the year, every year, for 16 years. Every Shabbat. But I wanted to be my nefesh a little bit. At that time, my kids were being brought up in a good yeshiva in Lakewood. I didn't want to play with that. And then years later, we finally moved back to Brooklyn for the shul. But I want to tell you one time, I'm not going to take your time after this. I just want you to understand how far this goes. I'm driving down Route 9 on my way into Lakewood, and I'm passing by Target, which is still in Howell, right before you reach Lakewood. Big shopping center. And I'm standing by the red light. And I look over to the left, and I see the craziest thing. on the asphalt, on the concrete, in the big, large Target parking lot, which you gotta love Jersey. They have parking. In the big, large Target parking lot, right up against the wall, making its way down the wall in a straight line up to the door of Target, I see that there are about 30, 40 tents. People pitch their tent in a parking lot. I'm thinking to myself, what are they doing in a parking lot pitching their tents? I mean, what's the deal? Oh, who'd be camping out in the parking lot of Target in the winter? It was freezing. It's like 30 degrees, freezing. I'm thinking to myself, what's the deal? It was a regular, guys, I'm going to tell you something. It was a regular Wednesday. There was nothing going on. It was a regular Wednesday. It was nothing like, It was a regular Wednesday. All right. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Maybe it's the Ben Shushan in me, but I have to check this out. I mean, this doesn't make sense. So, instead of going to Lakewood and being home on time, my poor wife, I decided I'm going to grab the jug handle. In Jersey, you can't make left turns. Everybody knows, right? You gotta do hakafot until you get to where you want to go. You got to take the jug handle and go all the way around and cross inside another jug handle to come all the way. So the time we made all the circles, I make my way into the parking lot of Target, get out of my car, and I walk up to the long line of tents. And I knock on one guy's door. And I say, hey, what's going on? Why are you camped out here in the parking lot of Target in the winter? It's freezing. And the guy looks at me like I was a Martian that landed from Mars. And he says to me, don't you know? I said, no. Don't you know? I said, no. What? What do I know? What's going on? He says, Black Friday. Baruch Baruch Shemo, Amen. Black Friday. I said, okay, Black Friday. I said, so let me just explain something. In New York, Black Friday is generally on Fridays. Today's Wednesday. Am I missing something? He says, no. In Jersey, it's also on Fridays. It's Black, Shmai Kenu. It's Black Friday. I said, so today's Wednesday. What are you doing? He says, he looks at me like, I'm the idiot. I'm the idiot. He says, don't you know? I said, no. Maybe break it down for me. He says, Black Friday. Target is giving away for the first 50 people that come through the doors at 5 a.m. I said, what? What time? He says, 5 a.m. Are you joking? I can't get guys to wake up in shul for Shachrit at 8. 5 a.m. What are you doing? It's before Vatiki. You guys are. He says, yeah, 5 a.m. 5 a.m. He said, if the first 50 people come through Target's doors 5 a.m. on Black Friday, they get a free Wii. Now this goes years back. I don't know if you guys remember what I'm talking about. The Wii was something from Nintendo. It was the beginning of those 3D interactive games that they had on a video game. It was the Wii, W-I-I. I don't know if you're in. This is back in the days. What can I tell you, Rabbi? I grew up in the 80s with the Cabbage Patch Dolls. It was a different era. I'm sorry. But I got to tell you the story the way it happened. This is what had happened. So there was this really hot game, right? The Wii. They were in back order for like months. You had to wait online and say Tehillim just for them to call you. You know what I mean? He says, but listen, Target has a few hundred in stock. The first 50, 5 a.m., come through the store, gets a free Wii. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, wow. Wii. Okay. I said, tell me, how much can you get for the Wii online? He says, that's why I'm here. I'm going to go in there. On Friday. Yeah, on Friday. Today's Wednesday. He says, yeah, I know. I'm going to go there on Friday. I'm holding my place online. I'm going to get the Wii. I'm going to put it up online. I'm going to make... The guy tells me north of, and I'm thinking like 10 grand, you know what I mean? North of $600-700. I said, $600? Well, let me get this right. You're out here on Wednesday in the freezing cold. You're going to be here, we'll do this with the fingers, Wednesday night, Thursday, Lel Shishi, Friday morning, and you get up 5 a.m. to get the Wii, so you put up online and get north of $600 to $700. He says, right. I said, but I don't know, when I go away to a hotel, I pay per night sleep, I don't know, $250, something like that. I don't know, it depends on your circles. Not everyone is a Motel 6 guy, you know. So we pay $250. I mean, that's already, is it worth to you $500 and 2 freezing days of sitting on concrete, Echa style, in Avelu, for a wee? And the guy looks at me and says, wee? Okay, so knock yourself out. That's it. I got my answer. Shema Yisrael. I can already hear my wife screaming, where's my husband? I'm out of there. I'm about to leave. Walking back to my humble Toyota Camry. And all of a sudden I hear a voice. Rabbi! Well, I spin around. And I look down the aisle. The row of tents. I think he was number 27. And I hear this guy screaming, Rabbi! So I turn around and I walk down the row of tents. And I walked up to tent number 27. And this guy, Rabbi, is that you? I said, is that me? Is that you? What are you doing here? In a tent. In the parking lot of Target. In 30 degrees weather. What are you doing here? He says, Rabbi, I searched all the Targets in the entire tri-state area. This is the only Target in the tri-state area. The one in Howell, right next to Lakewood, that still has the Wii in stock. I said, why? I said, you're here for that? You're here for that? A frum kid, you're here for that? I said, today's Wednesday. What are you going to do from Wednesday to Friday? You're going to freeze your head off. He says, yeah, but Rabbi, if I put the Wii up online, I said, I heard, believe me, I heard, I'm telling you, I heard north of $600 to $700. I know, I heard the whole mice, I heard. I said, but come on. That's the goyim. They have nothing to do. The Eibishter puts the we in the world for them to keep saying we, and forget about us. That's the whole point. But you're one of our guys. What are you doing here? So what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm going to get the we. I'm looking at this guy, Rabotai. Just want to give you a little bit of a picture. He's sitting there in the tent on 2 blankets. He has a kerosene lamp right next to him on one side. He has this little kerosene burner with a bunch of canned beans. This guy thinks he's in camp on an overnight, And he's going to be there from Wednesday to Friday morning, holding his spot with all the other chickens, waiting for the we. I don't know what to do. I said, okay, if this is what you want, Hashem shall watch over you, bring you home warm. I got back into my car and I went back and I drove to Lakewood. I came into the house. And my wife said, what happened? Why are you so late? I said, you're not going to believe this. But I'll tell you the truth. This is what I saw. I told her about the tents. I told her about the guy, number 27, one of our boys. I said, it's bothering me. I don't know what to tell you. I sat down. My wife brings out the schnitzel and she brings out the whole grand supper. Kederech HaMelech. I felt so guilty. I'm sitting there and I'm eating like and this poor kid is there in a tent with a kerosene warmer and cans of baked beans. He's going to be living on beans from Wednesday to Thursday to Friday. This guy is like he was on a bean marathon. I said to my wife, I don't feel right about it. She said, what do you want to do? I said, do me a favor. Let's just pack up everything and I'll bring it to the kid. So she packs up the whole supper, the schnitzel, the salads, the whole supper in trays and pans. I get back into the Camry. I drove back out to Howell. It's already nighttime. The store's closed. It was just the tents and the crickets. That's it. Nobody else was around. I walk up to tent number 27, our boy, and I knock on the front door. And I say the guy's name. The zipper, Rabbi, you came back? I said, yeah, I felt bad. Listen, I have a hot supper. You want to eat something good? He said, yeah, the beans are killing me. I said, no question. I know you're not joking. I said, okay, can I come in? He said, yeah, of course. He unzips the thing and he opens it up. Come inside. I was walking into, Abraham's tent. I sat down next to him on the floor in a pretzel. And I pull out and we start eating, and he has the kerosene lamp on. And I felt like I was, 14 again on an overnight in camp. We're sitting there together. I was waiting for someone to step up and say a cropsy story or something, something. And I turned to the guy and I said, listen, you want to learn something? I brought a sefer. I brought my Beis Halevi. I have my favorite sefer on bitachon. Maybe we can do it together. He said, great. He said, wow, we can do night seder in the parking lot of Target. Can you imagine? Oui. So we sit down together. We start learning the Beis Halevi, and we're learning, and we're learning. We're learning for an hour and a half. Would you believe it? We're sitting on the floor. I don't want to say in Avela style, Chas v'shalom, I don't want to say that, but we're sitting on the floor with a kerosene lamp in Target's parking lot. And we're learning a Beis Halevi together. After an hour of learning the Beis Halevi, the kid looks at me and says, what in the world am I doing here? And I said, it's funny you asked that question. I was hoping you'd ask that question. What in the world are you doing here? He says, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. But the minute that this kid started learning, the minute that there was a certain or that went into the head, that went into the neshama, that went into the mind, that woke this kid up and reminded him, buddy, you're an eagle. What are you doing with the chickens in Target's parking lot? What are you doing here on the floor in a tent? By the way, Rabbi, I want to tell you, on my way out, the tent must have cost $400. The kerosene lamp must have cost $50. The kerosene warmer must have cost. He had enough cans there. He had like $300 worth of canned beans. I'm saying, I said, hey, the hotzais, the hotza'ot, the expenses on this business trip. Pan out at the end. Okay, north of 600, but you're still a deficit of about $500-600. He said, no, I didn't think of that. I said, okay, forget it. Don't go into business. Come back to learning. I told him. We got up. It took us 45 minutes to take that tent apart. You wouldn't believe how many pieces these tents have. It has the elastic thing that bends, and then the strings, and you wouldn't believe what these strings are attached to. And until we finally got it. But wait till the end of the story. We finished wrapping up the tent. Him and me, we're going back to my car. I'm bringing him home to me in Lakewood. I'm giving him a hot room with a warm, hot, with a beautiful shower, with a achnasat orchim. Take him back to Brooklyn the next day and put him back where he belongs, in the sky of Torah and not in the mud of Target's wee parking lot. As we're leaving, all the goyim come out of their tents and they say, you're leaving? You're leaving? You're giving up your place online? Once you leave, you can't come back. And I looked at the kid and I said, remember those words. Remember what they just told you. The Eibush is talking to you. Vayiftach Hashem et pi ha'aton. Remember what they just told you. Once you leave the shtuyot, don't ever look back. And this kid gave me such a hug. And I turned to the guy and I said, we will not come back. We got into the Camry, we drove out of there as fast as I can drive, I'm telling you. They were angry at us. They were angry at us. Chutzpah. This guy gave up his place online. They couldn't be massig. How couldn't you sit here in 30 degrees from Wednesday to Friday morning, 5 a.m. for a week? And we're looking at them, you mishugoyim, you wackos. Olam hafuch ra'iti, the world is upside down. We live in a meshugana place. That's the Or HaTorah. And that's the Or of Chanukah. That lichtigkeit, that light of Chanukah pushes the darkness away and reminds us, get your head back straight. You know who you are. You know what you are meant to be. You know what you should be. Clean off the mud and go back up to the sky where you belong. And then you have the Or of a rabbi like this that doesn't want to let go of you guys. Your rabbi is a fighter. You know how I know? When he called me to come down to speak tonight, he called me 6 times in a matter of 6 minutes. He's not going to take no for an answer. That's why I don't tell him no. I know I have to come. The shiloh was which night? So we worked it out. Instead of Tuesday night, Wednesday night, whatever. But we're coming because it's an honor to be with a rabbi like this. He fights for Torah. He fights for Yiddishkeit. And he fights for you guys. To remind you that you're not chickens, you're an eagle. This is a Hanukkah Yid. We should be zeicha together. To use this Gmar Chatima, to walk out tonight and tell each other, Gmar Chasima Tova. I'm not joking. The Arizah would tell us tonight, Gmar Chasima Tova. The Badayan would tell us tonight, Gmar Chasima Tova. But what type of chasima do you want? I, like you, want a lichtige chatima. I want to illuminate the world with you. I want us to remind each other who we are. Because I know, Al-Ken, Lo Nitatia, L'Shela Beni, this galut was so long, we're still waiting for Mashiach. We're falling from the tirda parnasah, from the tests. But we tell each other, Ish le'ayemo. Oh, Yomar Chazak, we tell each other, be machazik. Remember who you are. The lichtigkeit. Rabbi say, Gmar Chatima Tova.